her. That baby murdered my wife. That's how my father publicly shamed my innocent sister at our mother's funeral, blaming a helpless infant for his loss. But years later, when she started calling me daddy, his regret hit hard. This is the story of abandonment, cruelty, and the family I built from the ruins. They say, family is everything. But what if your family sees you as the ruin of their lives? What if every good thing you do is twisted, denied, and thrown back in your face like a weapon? My name is Alex. I'm 24 now. And this is the story of how my father's resentment built up over years, through public humiliations, cruel words, and actions that crossed lines no parent should. It's the story of how he blamed my innocent little sister for our mother's death, only to regret it when she started calling me Daddy. But by then, it was too late. He'd already lost her, and I'd become the father he never was. Let me take you back to the beginning, where the seeds of his bitterness were sown. My parents were just kids themselves when they had me. Mum was 15, Dad 16. A teenage mistake that changed everything. From the moment I was born, I could feel it, the weight of their regret. They weren't ready, and they made sure I knew it. After my birth, both sets of grandparents disowned them. Mum dropped out of high school to care for me, while Dad juggled 2 dead-end jobs. We lived in squalor, crashing with Mum's older sister until I was 9. It was a hand-to-mouth existence, no stability, no warmth. But it wasn't just poverty. It was the way they looked at me, like I was the thief who stole their futures. As a toddler, I'd cry for attention, and Dad would snap, "We gave up everything for you, and this is how you repay us?" Even then, his words cut deep. Mum wasn't much better. She'd sigh and turn away, as if my very presence exhausted her. They provided the basics: food, shelter. But love? That was a luxury I never got. The humiliations started early, and they were always public, calculated to make me feel small in front of others. At family gatherings, which were rare and tense, Dad would parade me around like a cautionary tale. "Look at Alex," he'd say loudly to aunts and uncles. "The reason we're stuck in this hellhole. If it weren't for him, I'd have finished school, had a real career." They'd laugh awkwardly or murmur agreements, denying any potential in me. "He's just like his dad, trouble from the start," an aunt once said, right to my face, as if I weren't there. Mum wouldn't defend me, she'd just nod, her eyes distant. As I grew older, the denials escalated. I tried so hard to be good. Straight A's in school, helping around the house without complaint, but every achievement was twisted. When I won a spelling bee at age 8, Dad didn't congratulate me. Instead, at the school awards ceremony, he muttered loudly to the parents next to him, "Big deal. If we hadn't had him so young, I'd be the one on stage." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, but no one called him out. It was his way of publicly erasing any pride I might feel, making sure everyone knew my successes were despite him, not because of anything good in our family. By age 10, Dad had his GED and a better job. We moved into a small house, our first real home, but the improvements didn't extend to me. My clothes were always second-hand from Goodwill, threadbare and ill-fitting. "Why waste money on you?" Dad would say. Birthdays were minimal. A store-bought cupcake and a generic gift, like socks or a cheap toy I didn't want. One year, I begged for a bike like the other kids. He laughed in my face at dinner, with Mom's sister visiting. "A bike? After what you've cost us? Be grateful you're not on the streets." The humiliation burned. Public, deliberate, designed to break my spirit. In my teens, The cruelty turned darker, more calculated, even skirting the law. I stayed out of trouble, focused on school, even volunteered at a local shelter to feel useful. But Dad saw it as a threat to his narrative. At a community event where I was honored for my volunteer work, he showed up uninvited. In front of the crowd, neighbors, teachers, friends, he stood up during the speech and shouted, "Don't believe this act. He's the kid who ruined my life. All this goodness is just guilt for what he did to us." People gasped. Some whispered it was defamation, twisting my efforts into something ugly. Later, I learned he'd called the shelter anonymously, claiming I was unstable and shouldn't work with vulnerable people, a lie that could have gotten me banned, borderline harassment. Mum softened a bit in my teens, perhaps regretting her neutrality. She'd slip me extra allowance or praise my grades privately. But Dad? He doubled down. One night, after I confronted him about his drinking, he'd come home reeking, waking me with his rants. He gathered the family, Mum's sister and a few cousins, in the living room. "Alex thinks he's the parent now," he sneered. "But remember, he's the reason we're all broken. If not for him, we'd have a normal life." He denied my maturity, calling me a parasite who'd sucked the joy out of everything. The words were venomous, calculated to isolate me from any support. By 18, I was neutral toward them, strangers under one roof. No deep conversations, no bonding. They knew nothing about my dreams, my fears. Then Mum got pregnant. Suddenly, their attention shifted. "A fresh start," Dad said excitedly, ignoring me completely. It hurt, but I focused on college, studying business to escape. The pregnancy brought complications. Mum died giving birth to Belle, my little sister. The loss shattered Dad, but instead of grieving together, he turned on us. At the funeral, in front of extended family and friends, he wailed, "That baby took my wife," pointing at newborn Belle in my arms. People were horrified, but he didn't stop. "And you," he spat at me, "you're not even sad. You never loved her, just like you ruined us." It was public blame, denying my grief, which was real but quiet. Family members nodded, some even agreeing. He's always been cold. From then on, Dad's resentment built into something toxic. He abandoned us emotionally, and practically. He'd leave for days, drinking at bars, while I, at 19, cared for Belle. I came home from classes one day to her screams, unchanged diaper, starving, alone for hours. It was child neglect, illegal, but he didn't care. When I confronted him, he'd yell, "She's your problem now," or drop her at the fire station. That's what they do with unwanted kids. His threats were calculated cruelty, knowing I wouldn't let her go. I dropped out of college temporarily to care for her full-time. Belle was a joy. Smiley, easy sleeper. But Dad's actions grew more vicious. He'd forget to pay bills, leaving us without power once. Illegal endangerment for an infant. At a neighborhood barbecue, he drunkenly announced to everyone, "That girl's a killer, just like her brother was a curse. I should have given them both up." Public shaming, denying Belle's innocence, and my role as protector. I called him out repeatedly. "Be a father," I'd say. He'd laugh bitterly. Why? You stole my youth. She stole my wife. You're both poisons." His words were knives, twisted to hurt maximally. Once, he even plotted to relinquish Belle, contacting adoption agencies behind my back, falsifying documents claiming I was unfit. It was fraud, nearly succeeding until I discovered the papers and threatened legal action. Despite it all, I loved Belle fiercely. I worked night shifts, enrolled her in daycare, carved out afternoons for playtime. She knew Dad was her biological father, but as she toddled after him, seeking affection, he'd explode, "Get away, you little murderer!" in front of me, or worse, visitors. One time, with his drinking buddies over, he said loudly, "She looks just like her mom," before she killed her. Belle hid behind me, terrified. By preschool, she saw me as Dad. Teachers told me she called me her father in class. I let it be. Why correct her when I was her everything? On Father's Day, she gave me a handmade card. To Daddy. I teared up, told her she could call me that if she wanted. Since then, it's Daddy. A bond forged in his absence. Dad got a girlfriend, cleaned up, stopped drinking, better job, paid bills. He joined breakfasts, but silently neutral, like me, toward him. Then Belle's birthday party. I invited her class, surprised her with an electric car. She screamed joyfully, hugging me, "I love you, Daddy." After, Dad confronted me. "Why is she calling you Daddy?" I snapped back, "Because I raised her. You abandoned us." He went silent, but regret flickered. Now he tries, talks to her, buys toys. But she's awkward. He's a stranger. It hurts him. And selfishly, I enjoy it. He's reaping what he sowed. I've graduated, job hunting, to move us out. Custody battle looms. I'll fight. He may regret now, but his cruelty built this. Public denials, illegal neglect, calculated pain, it all led here. If you're in this, seek help. Build your family. Regret comes too late for some.